Hey folks, what's up? It's Adam here. I can't see the guy. Um, Lately I've been doing reviews based on medications and things like that. Different topic to what I usually do in movie reviews and things like that. Well, I like to think I could do a bit of both. You know, I'm going to do a movie review right now on a film which I saw not too long ago. I own it on Blu-ray. Um, Stuart Gordon film made in the year of 1995. Castle Freak. Got it on Blu-ray right here. Okay. As far as the special features go on this edition, we've got the trailers. We've got some original artwork galleries. There's like a making of Castle Freak. There's a few bits and pieces. Nothing so much to get overexcited about, but there are a few interesting special features in this edition. Okay, like I say, it was made in 1995, and in fact, I can tell you the exact release date of this movie, Castle Freak, November of 1995. Distributed by Full Moon Entertainment. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about the director of this movie, Stuart Gordon, and that name rings a bell instantly because Stuart Gordon's done some fair amount of good work, and he's done a few films which I know of. I mean, I looked at some of the other stuff that he did, and let's have a look. There's one film that does stand out, which I really do need to check out because everyone talks about this movie all the time. He written and directed Reanimator in 1985. He did From Beyond in 1986. He was the director of Dolls in 1987. I've got Dolls. I like Dolls. And he was a writer of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in 1989. Love that movie. It's a childhood favourite. And he was a producer of Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Love that movie also. And of this movie, he directed and written. He's done loads of things. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He's passed away now. He passed away this year at the age of 72. Hope he rests in peace. That film, Reanimator, everyone talks about that movie. They say it's a really good, gory classic. And to say the truth, I remember in the past someone says to me, can you please do a review on Reanimator based in the year of 1985? That Stuart did, and I was like, I haven't seen the movie. It's one movie that I've got to check out because I hear it's a masterpiece. So that's one film I've got to check out from this director at some point, Reanimator. But like I say, I like the film Dolls, about the horror film about dolls in 1987. I like that. And like I say, I'm a big fan of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. But this movie, Castle Freak, I'm like, meh with it. But the only reason why I wanted to check it out is because of the director's name. I knew it straight away as soon as I saw it. But this is like, meh, you know. It's not a masterpiece of a movie. I wouldn't say it's a forgettable movie. It's okay. It's okay. I definitely don't like it better than the other films are stated. You know what I mean? I was looking through some of the recommended horror films in 1995 online because I like all the old horror movies in the 80s and the 90s. But I looked through this one particular year of 1995, and this movie was listed Castle Freak. And like I says, I recognised the director straight away. So then I looked into the movie further, and there's a simple concept about this family moving into this castle. There's a freak in the dungeon. The freak escapes, causes terror, to all the people that are staying in the castle. And like I said, it's rated 18 for severe gore. I thought to myself, what more could I want? It's a straightforward film about a freak in a castle killing people. You can't get any simpler than that. Then again, is this a movie like this going to stand out and keep you entertained for how long is this movie on for? 95 minutes. So the 95 minutes, you got to keep the viewers on edge. You got to keep them into the movie. Sadly, that didn't happen with me when I was watching this movie. At some point, there was a few points where I was like, I really wish something would have happened, and you know what I mean. Because one thing about this movie, it doesn't have a massive kill count. Maybe it would have helped the movie a little bit more if they had a better kill count in this, more people dying in this movie. We do see a few good gore scenes. There's a few scenes that made me turn my head. I admit that they did. Especially that scene where the woman's tit gets bitten off. That made me turn my head a bit. There were nice tits and all that. And then the freak fucking bites them off, and I'm like, 16. You know, there's a scene where the freak bites his own thumb off so he can escape the chains that is locked to in the basement. That was a good little gore scene. I mean, the film opens up basically in the past. I mean, the freak being in the dungeon. There's this old woman, you know, she brings him food, and she ends up torturing him, whipping him, you know, punishing him, and she dies later of a heart attack in the castle. And then the film skips 2 years forward. There's this family, this guy who's a recovering alcoholic, and he's got a blind daughter, and his son passed away, and he's on edgy terms with his wife. This was all because years ago he was drinking and driving one night, and the car crashed. This ended up killing the son, making the daughter blind, but she has to be blind for the rest of her life. And basically, the wife has never forgave him for it, and their relationship, you know, their marriage is on edge. Basically, he does regret what he's done. He does show signs throughout the movie where he's in pain and blaming himself for what happened, and he's just doing whatever he can to be a good father, make up for what he's done. He understands he can't bring back the eyesight of his daughter, and he realises he can't bring his son back. Yet he's still got this little part of him that thinks he can make it up to his family by being a better father, never touching alcohol again, and he just wants to make it work with his wife, you know, make up for what he did. So they move into this castle. I like the look of the castle. You know, traditionally, good horror movies are in castles. You know, good surroundings. You know, just like the ancient castle with the gargoyles and stained glass windows and all the dogs surrounding the corridors, dusty staircases and things like that. They're unaware that the freak has broke out of the dungeon and is now lurking around the castle, basically. I mean, like I said, it's a straightforward movie. I mean, we already know about the background of this family. The fact that the father's a recovering alcoholic, he's trying to make up to his family, they've inherited this castle, there's a freak in the castle, and the freak is going to kill everybody off one by one. But you've just got this family alone in this castle. You know, a few other characters get introduced that take part in the castle, like police officers and things like that. Because there's a scene where he gets into a massive argument with his wife, and he ends up picking up a prostitute, and he ends up having sex with a prostitute in the castle. The freak kills the prostitute, and basically he's being blamed for the murder. You know, and you've got to fit in all different ideas in this 95-minute time limit. I mean, I thought to myself, this is going to drag. Or throughout the movie, I was thinking to myself, okay, when's something else good going to happen? There's only so much you can do with these characters, this story. I'm not saying the movie was boring, but it just came to a pace where I was like, what more is going to happen? You know, what are you going to do to fill out this 95-minute time limit? You know, because like I said, there wasn't a massive kill count in this movie. Yeah, a prostitute gets killed. She gets a tit bitten off. There's a scene where the freak's trying to, you know, do sexual advances to the blind girl. You know, acting-wise, there was nothing wrong with the acting. I thought every actor did a good job in their own little role. You know, I thought everyone portrayed their characters well. I mean, Jeffrey Combs plays John Riley, who was the alcoholic father. We've got Barbara Crampton as Susan. Jonathan Fuller played the freak. The freak right off the bat I thought was an interesting character. Obviously, it showed signs of abuse with scars all over his body. You know, being mentally and physically abused. You know, I thought the makeup of the freak was very good. I watched the making of the freak, you know, where they're doing his makeup and all that. The makeup doesn't look too childish. It doesn't look too ridiculous. It's looked like a freak, basically, where it was deformed around the face and around the lips area, showing the teeth, you know, the disfigurement around the cheeks and the eyes. So the look of the freak wasn't too silly. It wasn't too overbearing. You know, it was just right. I thought the look of the freak looked fine. You know, I thought the The creativity side of things with the gore and all that were fine. Like I said, there was one or two good gore scenes. It wasn't like over the top gore like you'd see in any of Stuart Gordon's horror movies. Like I say, you see a thumb get bitten off. The freak bites his thumb off to escape the chains. A tip being bitten off, and there is a few scenes of blood. Okay, not over the top. Depending on what the person's view is of that, of over the top. Some people would say I've said too much already about some of the things that happen in this movie, but we get a slow kill count off one by one. Basically the final showdown is between the alcoholic father and the freak on the top of the roof of the castle. To cut a long story short, both of them fall to the deaths because he falls off the roof, pulling the freak down with him, and the freak falls to his death and all that kind of stuff. There was a good touching scene with the wife saying that she still loves him, despite what he put the family through his alcoholic phase of his life. Killing the son and blinding the daughter and all that. She did show signs of love, but there was a massive part of her that couldn't forgive him for what he did. So the character development of the history of these characters was fine. There weren't boring characters or anything like that. There was satisfying characters. But again, the movie, maybe it would have helped if there was like a bigger kill count in this movie. I would have been more interested if they showed the creativity of the killing side of things, because it's meant to be a freak, it's meant to be a monster. It was scary enough, with it being a stalker, with evil intentions in mind, like seducing the blind girl and all that kind of stuff. So it would have been great if this freak had some sort of ways of killing his victims, like torturing them and things like that, especially with everything that he'd been through. So the kill count would have been more important in this movie. I think it lacked the kill count. This film would have been more memorable. It would have been more watchable if there was more creative killings in it. But the film is just so straight to the point in a 95-minute movie. Family moving into a castle. There's a freak in the castle. It's in the dungeon. It's broke out the dungeon. It's going to kill the family off that are living there one by one. Simple story enough. You know what I mean? But I just felt like it could have added a little bit more. I'm not saying the movie sucks. It's a fine flick, but I'm definitely not going to watch it again. Like I said, I only bought the Blu-ray. It was cheap on eBay. And like I says, the director, Stuart Gordon, when I saw the name Stuart Gordon, I was like, this is going to be a great movie, because with all the other films that I'm a fan of his, and okay, but definitely not one of his best films. I've got to check out that Reanimator. I've heard nothing but good stuff about that. That'll be one movie I'd love to check out in the future. But the other films like Dolls, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, big fan of those movies. And this one was mediocre okay. I'm definitely not going to see it again, but I might as well add it to my collection now that I own it on Blu-ray. I wasn't saying I was expecting a masterpiece, but I think I was expecting just a little bit more than what it was giving. That's all I want to say. That's basically my review for Castle Freak, everybody. Straightforward enough. Like I say, please like, rate, and comment this. Email me if you've got any questions. And that's basically it. I will state a few more facts about this movie online while I'm on. Yeah, like I said, 95 minutes, release of November of 1995, distributed by Full Moon Entertainment, directed by Stuart Gordon. The music was okay, by the way. That was done by Richard Band. I mean, reception-wise, it was mixed to positive. Although a lot of people do agree with what I said about the storyline feeling a little bit tight and all that stuff. There's actually going to be a remake of this movie as well. There's been talks about this being remade in 2018, and talks of a remake re-arose again in 2020 of April 16th. So there's been no ongoing thoughts with the project yet, but again, it's early days, but a remake is planning to be in the works. Good luck with that. That's my review, everybody. Like I say, like, rate, and comment, man, if you've got any questions, so we'll see where we go from here. Peace out, everyone. Have a nice day.